Hi, everybody. Today we're going to talk about doing text summarization using Chat GPT, but from Python. So what we're going to do in this video is basically write this class that's a text summarizer, but we're going to leverage Chat GPT to do it. And this is the end result. This is kind of like the code we're going to end up writing. It's not terribly complicated. It's mostly just being able to make Python talk to Chat GPT, and I'll show you how to handle the API keys and all that kind of stuff. But basically, we'll be able to do something like have this text summarizer that we write. We'll instantiate it like this. And then we can do something like average a list of sentences. So, we can give it, in this case, a couple sentences. These are all about cars. And basically, the purpose of this method is to return a single sentence that retains the information in all, in this case, 5 of these input sentences. And we'll kind of go through that. And the other thing it's going to do is just straight up summarize a sort of longer piece of text. So in this case, we're going to pass it this piece of text about how the universe started. And at the end, we're going to get a summary using the summarize text method that we will write. And you'll see that it's about 15% the original size of the input text. So I'll walk you through all of that. It's going to be pretty cool and pretty exciting. In the past, there's been a lot of models around NLP and text modeling, like topic modeling and all this kind of stuff. Now that large language models are here and we have things like ChatGPT, a lot of those sort of NLP based tasks have been made somewhat simple, as long as you're able to ping one of these large language models. So let's hop right into the video. I'll show you how to kind of write all this type of code, how to work with ChatGPT from Python, and hope it helps. So let's get to it. All right, so let's get started here. So the first thing I did is just create a Python notebook where we're going to start doing this stuff. But what we're going to do first is basically install the OpenAI package. And that'll kind of help us do that. So let's actually look at so if you go to the OpenAI website, you'll hit something like this. Just type openai.com, and then you can log in. If you hit login, I've already entered my credentials and stuff, but you would go to the API. So go to the API, and then from here you have things like Quick Start. Quick Start kind of is a very nice quick start. It helps you install Python if you haven't, but more importantly, you probably already have Python installed. You know how to install the OpenAI package using this command, and then you have to set up your API key, and then you can kind of test out that you did everything right by copying this code snippet and making sure that it runs. So let's do that first. So if I hop back over to my notebook, the first thing I want to do is the pip install OpenAI. And I think their syntax, yeah, we'll just copy it directly. So we want to do this with the magic command. Now I already have it installed, so I'm not going to run that piece of code. But this is what you would do in your notebook to get it installed in your environment. And once you have that ready to go, you can then go ahead and import OpenAI. Oh, we could just grab the code snippet. So this is the code snippet that we want to make run. So I'm going to just copy that so we can run that here. And I'm going to actually separate the import statement and put it here. I don't know. I might just, yeah, no, that's good. So we have the import of the package. And here, what's happening is we're instantiating a client, and then we're using the methods here. So chat completions. The completion is what ChatGPT returns when it's given a prompt, completions. So then it will create one based on what, well, you pass it the model. There's various different models. We're just going to use this one. And then here the example is there's a role system. This is basically setting the stage or the scenery or the background for ChatGPT. In this example code snippet that they give you, it's saying that you, meaning ChatGPT, you are a poetic assistant skilled at explaining complex programming concepts with creative flair. So ChatGPT already is primed to kind of give responses that kind of are against this background. And then the next thing you give it is role user content. So this is you now. This is ChatGPT, and this is you. You're the user, and the content you're giving it here in this example is compose a poem that explains the concept of recursion and programming. So we want to see if we can make this code snippet work over here. But well, we have to do a few things first. So we need to get the API key set up with our account to be able to run this. If you try to run this without your API key set up, it's not going to do anything. So let's hop over to that and see if we can get that working. So what you want to do from here is go over to, I think it's, what is this? API keys. So you hit API keys. I already have it open here. Let me close that. Hit API keys and you can create one right here. I've created some test ones here. So when you go to create, you just give it a name and it'll create the key and you just copy paste it over. Now, when you copy paste it over, you're going to want to, well, I can kind of do it now and then just delete it. Let me just show you. So I'm going to create it right now. So tutorial API key, create. It gives me the API key. I'm going to copy it, hit done. Okay. Now, if I go back to my code, the way it works with ChatGPT, well, one of the ways it works is we're going to create a new file called .env for our environment variables. We're going to paste our API key in here, and we need to give it, we could call it anything we want, but the sort of syntax that ChatGPT, the documents say to go with is OpenAI, OpenAI API key equals. So this is our OpenAI API key, which I'm going to delete after this video so you guys won't be able to use it. But let's close that now. Okay, so now from here, what we do essentially is we need to import the OS package. So let me run this piece of code. Yeah, let's run this. Let's run that. And then what we're going to do is come in here. So the client here, when we instantiate a client, what we're going to do is pass it the API key. So this is an argument that it accepts, and we're going to do os environ.get, and we're going to give it OpenAI API key. So what this is going to do is it's going to instantiate a client to Chat GPT and grab the API key from the .env file of environmental variables. So environment variables, right? So there's lots of ways to configure the API key. For what I'm showing you here, this is fine. You could probably have a more complicated setup where you really want to lock down that API key and it might be hidden in some vault or something. So you would have kind of maybe a different way to pump it in here, but this is one way to do it. Okay, so now that we have that kind of set up, now we should be able to run this piece of code. I will say one quick thing though. If we go back to here, now in order to actually make this thing work and run, you have to actually go to, I forget how I got there, but usage and increase limit, and you can buy credits essentially. So within settings in billing, you can basically put your credit card in here, and you have to kind of buy credits. Unfortunately, you have to kind of pay for it. Essentially, is what I'm saying. So I think it's something like 750 or 1,000 tokens, which are parts of words, or they're like characters of a word or something. Translates into like about a penny. There's different billing. Let's see, pricing. I had this open before. Yeah, so it's about a cent per 1,000 tokens, with each token being like, you can think of it as a letter in a piece of text, or maybe parts of the word essentially. So tokens are usually parts of the sentence or parts of the text, or actually words in the text. So that's kind of what this translates into. So yeah, you have to kind of set up your credit card here. So you could just do it and buy credits, and I just bought $5, so that's all I did there. But once you have that set up, and once you have your API key set up, And then you're able to kind of run this. So let's go ahead and run this and see what we get as an output. So we get this to go. It takes like a little bit of time. And let's see what it returns back to us. So, okay, we get Chat GPT. We get an object response back with a content. Oh, I can't hit that. Content equals in the realm of code, a technique profound recursion holds its crown firm on the ground. Wow, it's rhyming and stuff. A dance of function, elegant and wise, unfolding logic that never dies. That's really elegant. Nice. Okay, so this works. We have our environment set up with the .env file. We've installed OpenAI. We've imported the packages. We've pumped our API key into the client, and we've constructed this message. This is basically the structure that you would use to ask ChatGPT something. So actually, from here, I think what would be nicer to do is our completion is here. So if we were instead to access it like this, content, because content is a attribute of this object, and so this, if we print it, should just be, yeah, this is just plain straight up text, whereas the completion message is an object. When you do .content, you get the pure text. So there's the pure text. Okay, so we're good on that. Now let's start writing our text summarizer class object, and let's see how we're going to do this. We want to accomplish two things basically. We want to write a text summarizer that's able to do different sorts of NLP tasks. In this tutorial, I'm going to do two of them. One is if you're given a list of sentences, we want the summarizer to basically combine those down into a single sentence that still retains all the information in the original sentences. So basically average the sentences. Give me a list of 5-10 sentences and average them down into one. And that's the first task we're going to do. The second task we're going to do is just ask ChatGPT to straight up just summarize a piece of text. So let's hop over to do that. Okay, so now we can start writing our text summarizer. Before we start writing it, I'm gonna ask ChatGPT one more thing. I just want to test it out a little more. So let's say, what if we asked it? Let's say, I don't know, something like more factual. So like, you are an expert at geography. So ChatGPT, you are an expert at geography. Play that role. And what I want you to do is, can you list out the capitals of all states in the USA? Question mark. So let's see what it comes back with here. So let's see. So we're creating another completion, and we told it you are an expert at geography. And we asked it, can you just list out all the capitals of all states in the USA? So here it says, sure, here's a list of the capitals of all states in the USA. So it gives us all of them, which is pretty cool. So yeah, it works. So whereas before it was giving us sort of an artistic sort of poem about recursion in programming, here we're just asking it straight up for like facts essentially. And for text summarization, I guess it's not really asking for facts, and it's not asking for a creative output. It's more asking for something, so it's a logical sort of NLP driven task. So let's get on to doing that. And one thing I want to point out is this client that I'm using, we can actually close it. So I'm going to close it just because I'm going to close it. So the client is now closed. And if you try to run this again, you should get an error because it's using that same client. Runtime error. Yeah, so cannot send a request as the client has been closed. Perfect, so we understand that. So from here, now we're going to write the text summarizer class. Right, so let's start doing that. So basically from there, what we're going to start with is giving it a name. So let's call it class text summarizer. So let me scroll down a bit. So text summarizer, and I think, well, first we need our def init self. And I think one of the things that we're going to need is kind of like the model. So, well, yeah, so OpenAI model. So the model that we're using, and that's going to be this one. So we're using that model everywhere, and we're sort of making that permanent by setting it as a class attribute here. So a Chat GPT model that we will be using. So everywhere. Okay. So now in the constructor, we want to basically set the API key. And that's kind of what we did before, where we loaded it. Remember up here, we loaded it from the environment. So our environment variables, essentially. So we could put that here, but what I'm going to do is maybe a little bit more flexible. I'm going to define a separate method to get API key. Because sometimes your API key is not just sitting in a .env file in the same directory. Sometimes it's more secured, stored in, like I said, maybe a vault or some kind of key system, key management system on Azure or Amazon or something. So you might want an actual method that kind of gets or fetches the API key instead of you just kind of doing it right like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out. I'm going to say fetch API key self, and I'm going to say return this. So in here would be all the code required to fetch the API key. So however complicated that may be, it would go in here, and we would just get it like this. So the constructor will set the API key to be used elsewhere. And then next, what we can do is start writing our methods. So the first one we want to write is a method to take list of sentences and return summarized average single sentence. So we're going to call that method average sentences self list of sentences. So basically the input is a list of sentences, and this method is going to just average out the sentences. So the first thing we need to do here is instantiate the client, right? And at the end, we'll need to close the client. So first, for instantiation, we can do client equals OpenAI, and here's where we want to set our API key. And then we already have that set, right? Self.API key. We already have that set up here in the constructor, which runs the minute we instantiate this class. So this will kind of set up the client for us. And then once we have that set up, we need to basically write prompt. So basically need to, write prompt to Chat GPT to execute our task, right? So in our case, our prompt might be something like, "Hey ChatGPT, here is a list of multiple sentences that I want you to summarize and rewrite as a single sentence. The sentences are separated by new line characters as follows. Sentences." And then, so this is the prompt's kind of long and it's going off the screen, but let me go through. Here is a list of multiple sentences that I want you to summarize and rewrite as a single sentence. The sentences are separated by new line characters / as follows. And then we have what we're going to do is we're going to inject the list right here. The way we kind of do that, I'll break it up into two lines because it's kind of long. So prompt equals, right? Prompt again, format. Okay, so now we're going to inject it in there. So sentences equals, and we're going to make our list, join, and then it's list of sentences. So basically what we're saying is this is just a piece of text with this here, because that basically allows us to inject text into this using the dot format method. So on the prompt, right, we call dot format and we say sentences, which is the thing that we put in as a variable here. In sentences, you should inject this, right? Inject this. Now, what is this? It's a new line character string, so it's just literally a string. Dot join means basically take everything that's in here. This is a list. Take the entire list and collapse it down into a single string separated by this new line character. So if you're not familiar with that, what this basically means is like this. Dot join, and I'm going to give it a list like, hi, my name is Michael. I like red cars. I like chocolate ice cream. Right. So now if I run I have a list inside the join, and the join is basically going to collapse them down and separate them by that new line character. So if I run this, I have the first sentence, new line character, second sentence, new line character, and then the third sentence. So that's all it's really doing. So let's get rid of that. We don't need that. So that's the prompt. And now we make request to Chat GPT. Now that we have the prompt written, we can go ahead and make the request to Chat GPT. So let's copy this kind of setup that we had before here. Just drop it right in there. So, okay. Let's get these lined up. Okay. So the model we already have set as a class parameter or class attribute. It's right here. We can reference it with the dot self. So all the attributes can be referenced with dot self, right? So over here, we have it referenced just like that. And now the messages, this is where we have to change it. So now the system, so what ChatGPT, what you should kind of set yourself up as ChatGPT is that, hey ChatGPT, you are an assistant that is able to read several sentences and then combine them into a single summarized sentence. The sentences will be sent to you. Let me see. Sent to you with a new line character separating them. You will return a single sentence. Okay. So by writing this, we're basically setting the stage for ChatGPT. Hey, ChatGPT, you are an assistant that's able to read a list of sentences. So you're able to read several sentences and then combine them into a single summarized sentence. That's what you're set up to do. The sentences will be sent to you with a new line character separating them, and you will return a single sentence. So we're trying to be really specific and set ChatGPT up to do exactly what we want it to do. And then for the prompt, well, we already have the prompt written here, so we can actually just write the prompt right in there. And the prompt's already constructed right here, right? So we didn't want to muddy this up too much, so we just did it like that. Okay, so that's the request essentially. And then from there, what we can do is say, this basically gets the response from ChatGPT. So this is supposed to summarize a list of sentences. So let's say this is summarized sentence equals this. Okay, so that's basically our final result, our summarized sentence. It's going to just get whatever ChatGPT returned. We're going to go ahead and close the client that we instantiated up here. Just close it. And then finally, so let me just label this. Uh, get the summarized sentence output from ChatGPT. And then from here, what we're going to do is return the summarized sentence, right? So let's go ahead and run this. And let's just go ahead and instantiate our summarizer. So let's call it GPT summarizer equals text summarizer. So we're going to instantiate that. And now let's go ahead and see how this method may work, this average sentences method. So to GPT summarizer, average sentences, right? Now let's give it a list of sentences. So let's say, I love the way the car drives. That's one sentence. Another one might be, the car drives so smoothly. It's another sentence. Maybe the car glides across the road effortlessly. So I'm just writing a bunch of different sentences about how good a car drives, because what I wanted to do is be able to recognize a bunch of similar statements and just collapse it down into one. So another one might be, this car is amazing, which is a little bit more broad and general, and I'll just throw in something kind of off the wall, which is still related to here. It's not about how the car drives, but maybe I'll say something like, the car is sleek and beautiful. So something good about the car, but somewhat unrelated to the driving and stuff. And let's see how it summarizes this. That would be kind of interesting. So average sentence equals, I call it average sentencing because it's kind of like, it reminds me of taking a bunch of different numbers and just taking their average. Here we're taking a bunch of different sentences and we're taking their average, which is kind of an interesting concept. So let's go ahead and print out average sentence and let's see how well it does. So if we run this, it's going, okay, so what does it give us? It says, I love the way the car drives. It drives so smoothly, glides across the road effortlessly, and is amazing with its sleek and beautiful design. Interesting. So kind of like summarized it by just repeating the different elements kind of the within the sentences, which is sort of interesting. Um, I wonder if it's possible to make it more simple. You return a single sentence. Um, let's run it again. I'm curious. Will it give a different result if we run it again? Let's try to, I'm gonna copy this and run it again down here. Let's see if it gives a different it's a little simpler. It's a little bit simpler. It's kind of the same though. It's basically the same. But I guess it did its job. It summarized it down into a single sentence. I guess what we could change about it is maybe um, in the prompt we can say, here's a list of multiple sentences that I want you to summarize and rewrite as a single sentence. The sentences are separated by the new line characters as follows. Maybe we can say a single sentence that is roughly the same length as the input sentences. So let's see if that changes things. So we're saying return an average sentence, but we want it to be roughly the same length. So let's see how that sort of works. So I reran the class. Let's rerun the summarizer, reinstantiate it, and then let's run this. Let's see. Okay. So that's kind of interesting. So the car drives smoothly, effortlessly gliding across the road, and its sleek, beautiful design adds to its amazingness. That's pretty good, I think. I mean that essentially is a single sentence that sort of summarizes the gist of what all these sentences are saying. So I do think that that kind of makes sense and works. And maybe by playing with the prompts, you can get this to work to exactly what you want. Uh, but I think that works for what we're trying to show. Now, this specific task of taking um, different pieces of text and kind of trying to consolidate it into one, it sort of pops up often. Like, for example, if you work with text data that, maybe you've clustered some text data and you want to sort of get a representative average of each cluster, this method would be able to help you take the pieces of text in each cluster and combine it into one average representative. If you ever done text clustering in the past, usually you take like the piece of text that's closest to the center if you've done some sort of embedding as the representative of the cluster. This method would be much better at coming up with a representative sentence of the total group. Another good place to use it is like if you're dealing with like a data set of customer names and there's like annoying variations in the customer names, this would be able to consolidate that down, hopefully. Or you get it a lot with job titles. If you're dealing with job title data, this method would help you take a list of job titles and sort of collapse them down into sort of one, kind of basically remove the duplicates. So if you have data analyst written 5 different ways, like data analyst with a typo, like whatever, this method would be able to help you kind of reduce that down. And you'd probably write a different prompt for that. But this is kind of an interesting way to use it. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to hop back up to the class and we're actually going to write a text summarizer. So let's say method to summarize a piece of text. So def text. So let's write summarize text self text. So let's write input text. Okay. So we're going to borrow a lot of the structure from here. So I'm just going to grab this and just copy it. So we're going to do the same things. We're going to, instantiate the client. The prompt's going to be different. And what we're going to get out of it is get the summary of the input text, right? Output from ChatGPT. So this would be summary output. And that's what we're going to be returning. And now we're giving input text. So the prompt has to change. The prompt will be different. So let's actually do, we may not need to actually, we might be able to keep this simpler. This one might be simpler. So let's go in here. So role system content. So what should ChatGPT be in this example? Let's delete this. In this example, ChatGPT, you are an assistant that is able to read a piece of text and summarize it. Your summary will be 10 sentences or less. Okay, now for the prompt, we can say, hey ChatGPT, here is the text to be summarized below the new line character. And then just hit this. And this is our input text. Format input text equals input text. So I have that as the input. And let me not be confusing. So the input text is being passed to this method. And so here I'm just going to write text. Oops. Jeez. I keep messing that up. Okay. So what it's going to do here is inject the input text right into here. So you are an assistant that's able to read a piece of text and summarize it. Here's the text to be summarized, right? So let's see how that works. So I think I have this all set up correctly. Summary output. I think the only thing I have to change... Oh, no, I think it's good. So let's run this. I think it's all right. Let's run this again. Let's reinstantiate this. Let's run this again and see if it returns a different response. Um, it's kind of it's different. The car drives smoothly, effortlessly, gliding across the road, making it amazing, sleek, and beautiful. That's a pretty good summary of all this, collapsing it into one sentence. So that's cool. That's an interesting NLP kind of task to do. But next we're going to do summarize text equals GPT summarizer, um, summarize text. And then we need to give it the input text, right? So let me actually get some input text um, and put it in here. And this will be the summarized uh, output text. So let's get some input text, right, so that we can compare it basically. So I had searched something up here. Um, how did the universe begin? Um, how will it end? So let's actually grab all this text. I'm gonna grab all of it. We don't want like the annoying stuff at the ends. Looks like it ends here. So copy that, and we're actually gonna open a notepad file. Um, so let's just paste that in here and delete any of the like this stuff we don't need. This is a valid piece of text. This is good, 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 good. Watch the video. This is a video. We don't need that there. Take that out. This is good. This is good. This is content. Content. Yeah, it's more content. This is a picture of Andromeda Galaxy. Delete that. Um, yes. I think that's good. Okay. So I'm going to copy all of this. I'm going to go back um, to the code here, and I'm going to drop it right in here. Okay, I can kind of clean it up just a little bit. So let's do that. Okay, so what is this about? The Big Bang Theory says the universe came into being from a single, undeniably hot and dense point. Blah blah blah. It accounts for many of the things astronomers see. So it's a if you know about cosmology, you probably know about this already. But it's just an explanation of how the universe started. That's the start. How will it end? The concept of a Big Bang doesn't indicate whether the universe will continue to expand or cool, or whether it will end in fire or ice. Blah blah blah. So it's just kind of telling us, how like the story about how we think the universe started and where it's headed and how it may end. Um, so let me go ahead and run this. So the summarizer, let's see how well it does. Okay, so it's done. Now, what I want to do is let me print the length of the input text, 400, and let me print the length of the summarized output text. So it's much smaller, and as a ratio, what is the ratio there? Input text. It's about 15% the size of the input text. So it collapsed it down from 100% of the input text down to 15% of the size. So let's take a look at what that is. So print summarized output text. So the Big Bang Theory explains the beginning of the universe and accounts for the expansion of space and the creation of light elements. Cosmic inflation is a period of rapid expansion followed by the Big Bang that explains the uniformity of the universe and the formation of its structure. The fate of the universe depends on dark matter and dark energy, which make up the majority of its mass and energy content. Dark matter is still a mystery, though it is believed that it's to be made up of undetected particles. Dark energy is a force that pushes objects apart and is related to the energy that caused inflation. Astronomers study the early universe through telescopes and are planning further research on dark matter, dark energy, black holes, and more. That pretty much seems to sum up the whole article. And this whole article is just about, all of it. But you can see that it contracted it down to 15% the original size. So I think that that this summarizer works pretty well. Now, in the past, you may have used sort of different types of summarizers that extract sentences and try to piece them together. For example, I think there's like the PageRank algorithm that's applied to this, so it uses like network graphs and stuff to try to like calculate a similarity score between sentences, and it sort of builds like a network model and tries to collect sentences that would best describe the total. This sort of supersedes that entirely. These large language models kind of make those a little bit, those other old models somewhat obsolete, maybe to an extent. But that's how it goes. So I think that method works pretty good. So um, we have now a class object that has is a GPT summarizer. We can average sentences, right? And we can also do summarize text. Um, Maybe we can do. Let's try to do one more thing. Let's do. Let's in our class. Let's add one more thing. Let's do method to consolidate job titles. So I think this is a common. I mean, everywhere I've worked, there's always been this issue that arises when you study, when you try to do modeling around HR data or something. The job titles are always just, this is always like, I'll show you what I mean, but there's always such variability when it should just be one standardized thing. But let's go through this. So consolidate job type. Let's do consolidate um, texts, right? Self, and let's write texts here. So text will be a list of texts. So I'll show you that there. But let's grab this again. And this is getting kind of repetitive, so we may want to sort of standardize this a bit. Maybe we can optimize the way we're writing this code, but for now, I just want to copy paste it and sort of, just for the sake of doing it. But you could definitely extract this out, because really what's changing is this part. So each of these methods may just be the construction of the prompt itself, not necessarily all the rest of this code. Um, so that would be a way to restructure this. But for now, I'm just going to leave it like this. You can always optimize the way you're writing it. Yeah, so so consolidate text. Let me actually keep it specific to job titles. So I'm going to write consolidate job titles. And let's call this job titles. Okay. Now, what should ChatGPT be in this case? So let's erase this here. Okay. So consolidated job title singular. Okay. So this is going to be a list of job titles that are going to have all different variations. So ChatGPT, you are an assistant that can read a list of job titles which are all the same job title but are written slightly differently with different variations and possibly with typos. Your job, you are an expert at reading the list of job titles with all their variations and returning back a single job title that represents the entire input group. Okay, so user content. Here is the list of job titles separated by new line characters for you to um, combine and consolidate down into a single job title that represents the entire group, entire list. Okay. So let's write new line and then brackets, list of titles. Okay, and then let's actually take this prompt out because it's kind of long. Let's take this out, prompt. Let's write the prompt here, write prompt. Okay, and then we're gonna do prompt equals prompt format list of titles equals job titles. So we're going to pass it that. Let's see how this comes out. I'm curious how this might work. So again, here's a list of job titles separated by new line characters for you to combine and consolidate down into a single job title that presents the entire list. And the assistant kind of sets the same stage. So, okay, let's run this again. Let's reinstantiate the GPT summarizer. Let's come down here and let's do summarizer. And then let's do consolidate job titles. The list of job titles. Let's say we had data analyst. That's what it should be. That's right. Data and list typo. Let's write data analyst manager. Let's go data. Let's write analyst of data. Analyst of data, data analyst manager. Let's go data analyst 2. And let's just see what it comes up with. I'm curious. I don't really know. Let's see how good it is at sort of summarizing these down into one. So let's go ahead and run this. Okay, after analyzing the list of job titles, the consolidated single job title that represents the entire list is just data analyst. Perfect. That is perfect. That is really amazing. I actually really want to use this at work. You could do the same thing for, like, you can imagine having GPT summarizer consolidate customer names, because sometimes like customer names are all over the place and you want to consolidate them down into a single. This may be a fantastic way to do that. So anyway, I think we had a pretty good introduction to integrating ChatGPT with Python through the API. I kind of showed you how to get the API keys, set up the environment variable, instantiate the client. I showed you how to write the class that may, have various NLP related tasks associated to it. And I showed you like some prompt writing, all that kind of stuff. And people kind of make a big deal about prompt writing. I think, it is important, but it's something that you would kind of tweak and refine as you go. I don't know if people need to necessarily be experts at prompt writing. At the end of the day, it's always something that if you can make it work for you, then perfect. Then I think we got it to work pretty nicely in the 3 tasks that we set out to do. So yeah, I hope this was an interesting sort of really cool NLP topic tutorial that we covered today. Yeah, please like and subscribe, and thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time in another video.